Can you believe we are 1 week away from actual NFL football that counts towards something? Can you believe it or not? I'm still trying to wrap my mind around it. Welcome in to the Bearfront podcast presented by ChiCitySports.com. I'm Steven Johnson alongside Nick Bidding. Nick, we're doing something a little bit different here.
Yes.
We have our new teammates with the Keeping It 100, Phil and Shane. They opened our eyes to the wide world of live streaming, and so here we are. We're gonna try this out for ourselves as well, and it's finally feeling a little bit more real. I don't know about the doubt of whether or not we're going to get through a full season, but we're here.
I feel like the NFL season is a baby deer that you're just trying to feed, and you're like, shh, don't scare it. Shh, just no sudden movements. Just let it come out of the woods. We're just trying to not mess this up at this point, really. You keep seeing all the news come out of all the colleges. I think Maryland today had to shut down 10 athletic programs because of positive COVID tests. And you just keep crossing your fingers that somehow we're going to get some form of football. I'm just happy rugby's back. I've been watching a lot of rugby lately, so that's kind of filling my football, like people crashing into each other's quota. But
the NBA bubble isn't cutting it for you?
No. So right now, it's basically glorified open gym, open run stuff. So I'm definitely excited for the prospect of some actual football occurring here soon.
Yeah, I hear you. It's been a long time coming. As we all know, a 2020 without an NFL preseason has been a little uneventful, to say the least. I know it's made my life a living hell trying to navigate fantasy football without anything actually happening, and the hype has gotten out of control. Thankfully, there has not been a whole lot of I guess overhype in Bears camp outside of again, like we discussed on the last episode, hearing the same exact things we have heard time and time again when it comes to Bears camp. And that's so everybody's looking great. There really isn't any negative news outside of the David Montgomery injury last week. Again, may not play, may play, who knows? Maybe we'll see 20 carries out of Ryan Nall against the Detroit Lions. And honestly, if there's a team where you are only going to run the ball 7 times, it's against the Detroit Lions, who have a god-awful secondary and did jack squat to actually improve said secondary.
Overrated. It's overrated. Improving yourself is overrated.
Yeah, why not? There's no problem. What problem? I don't know what you're talking about.
I don't see any problems.
Let's not worry about this giant elephant in the room that's knocking over every single piece of china and just smashing it to the floor. That's the Detroit Lions to start off 2020 so far. But before we get a little bit further into this, I do also want to mention as well, with this new system that we are trying out, we have a couple people that are commenting in here. We do welcome in any comments. We feature comments. It's going to be a different kind of vibe, but it's a positive vibe to this. So Chubbs, welcome in. Alberto, welcome in. Again, we're on YouTube. We are on Facebook. We are on Twitter. Again, going to do a live episode here, and then obviously in podcast form, it will be out on all the major providers tomorrow morning. So I know we kind of talked about elephant in the room. The elephant in the room for the Bears being this quarterback battle. I don't even know if you want to call it a battle at this point, because at this point it just seems like two guys just kind of slapping like this.
This is the worst possible year for this to happen, because we don't have a preseason to even see them. We don't really have much out of camp. So we were actually talking before we went on. We're speculating on speculation, which isn't helpful in any way, shape, or form. And it's just a mess and a cluster. So I think the most I've taken out of it the last few days is it seems like, I want to say most of the beat reporters, at least most of the people that I've seen on Twitter scrolling through or any articles I've read, it feels like there's a slight edge to Foles. It feels like he's pulled ahead in the last few days, or at least has looked more consistent or sharper than Trubisky is. Now, I don't know how high of a hurdle that was to get over, so I don't know what that really means and, relative to the rest of the NFL and what Foles has looked like relative to a quality NFL starter. But it at least seems that Foles has pulled away a bit. I don't know. And to Chubbs' point about beat reporters 75 yards away, I get it, but we have nothing else to go off of.
Yeah, and that's the fun with this whole thing. Again, it's kind of like the morning that the Montgomery injury happened, and we're all like, "Oh no, he tore his ACL. This looks terrible." And all these people coming out with all these different things saying, "Oh no, look out, look out." And then we find out what the video actually is, and we're like, screwed up his groin. Like that's it. Like he screwed up his groin. Like what else like is there to worry about? But I can't stand just how Matt Nagy is talking about this whole battle. Like I honestly don't know who's ahead and who isn't. I will forever have it ingrained in my mind that from a psychological standpoint, Mitch Trubisky makes more sense to get the start out of the gate for 2020. And again, there's a few reasons for that. First being,
walk me through those.
Okay, so first being, like we said, the beginning of the Bears schedule, and just to foreshadow a little bit, we're going to go through the Bears schedule here as well, give our predictions for games 1 through 16. Fingers crossed we get all the way to 16 and see where exactly we land by the end of this 2020 season. But the way that the beginning of the schedule is set up, you have the Lions, you have the Giants, you have the Falcons, the Colts, the Buccaneers, the Panthers. Those are your first 6 games. 5 of those are not good defenses. They just aren't. And you have a guy in Mitchell Trubisky going into his 4th year. There's a lot of people that say, okay, he had a shot last year. He regressed. He didn't take that step forward that a lot of people thought he was going to take that step forward for. And instead, it turns into, okay, we have Foles. He's the Super Bowl quarterback. Well, 2 scenarios here. You start Foles. He sucks. You have to go back to Trubisky, who you basically knocked down. You basically put him in the position that he was at the end of that Rams game, where he's just dejected as hell. And, it's just ruining everything about his psyche in terms of how he steps onto the field and what he can do. I don't feel like that really benefits your younger player who I hate saying the word where you don't know if he's necessarily reached his full potential, because I feel like a lot of people believe that he has reached the ceiling, but there's also exactly. But there's also that possibility that he is able to turn it around, that he is able to find another gear and improve. And that's the flip side of this. Starting Trubisky against these defenses, you can't ask for a better setup of teams to go against to light a fire under your quarterback's butt to go and just ball out and get that passing game going. And that's all there is to it. And it's like, for me, it's staring them dead in the face, because, I mean, let's be real here. Like, there is I would say he's used to it, but Nick Foles is used to coming off the bench and jumping into situations that, better the team. He's really never put together a long string of positive games outside of what was his 2nd or 3rd year with the Eagles, where he had that 7 touchdown game, and everybody was like, look out, Nick Foles. And then we all learned that was not a thing. So I don't know. I look at it more from a psychological standpoint, that like, it's literally being handed to the Bears on a silver platter. Like, if you want to give Trubisky one last shot, this is it. Because if he can't get it done against the Detroit Lions, okay, then he sucks. Go to Foles for the rest of the season. I don't care at that point.
My two counter arguments to that is my concern would be starting Trubisky early in the season against a lot of bad teams. You might get a false positive per se out of what Trubisky is. So it's almost you're almost setting them up to succeed, but is it real success in the grand scheme of can he be a franchise quarterback relative to what you want him to become? It's almost like the conversation we were having last year a bit, where we joked, all right, well, this is a terrible defense. Expect Trubisky to ball out here. And we kind of said these games don't matter. So I have a hard time kind of circling back and reversing course on that and now saying, beating the Lions, Giants, Colts, Bucks, whatever cruddy defense he runs across. I can't say that means something this year when last year it didn't. He should play well against the Lions if he plays. He should play well against the Giants if he plays. Those types of things. And then my only other thing with the psychological reasoning with Trubisky is if the damage was going to be done, it was done as soon as they traded for Foles. I don't think bringing in Foles, I don't think Trubisky's naive, at least I hope not, to the point where he thought this was some sort of open competition and Foles.
Remember, we're talking about a quarterback who just now fixed his mechanics.
Again, for the third straight year. Amazing. I just feel like if the damage was done, it was done early on when they first brought in Foles. I don't feel like starting Foles over him is going to completely break Mitch, because I feel like maybe that was broken in March or early April, whenever that trade was made. So I'm just not sure there's a lot there psychologically that I can really buy into. And I go back to another point I made last year on Mitch, is if Mitch has to get benched to light a fire under him, I don't think this is the guy you want quarterbacking your franchise if it took to get to this point to light the fire. That's my other issue. But
yeah,
I think what you're saying, we're dealing in the abstract and the psychological. I have more of an issue with the lighting a fire thing. And the false positive, it's more me trying not to be a hypocrite and saying, well, he played really well against the Lions this year. He's turned it around, when last year I was like, I don't care how he plays against the Lions. I truly don't, and I still don't.
I guess the flip side of that coin too is like you mentioned, like we should expect him to be good,
yes,
against these teams, and
we
like if he's not, then he's just not.
He's a good team.
Like I almost want to look at it as like, well, I told you so. Like it happened. Like it's like I don't know. Like there's something. There's something about it. I'm still trying to put my finger on it. Like I don't know. I don't know. Like it just seems like and personally, if you ask me today, like which way are the Bears going to go, I think they do go Foles. Mm-hmm. I think that is the guy, and the fact that we are this late into the preseason and there's still no announcement about who is the winner and who will be starting. Because I mean, look at it again. Like last week, we were talking about a announcement that possibly could have happened the day of the game. Like that was a solid possibility. And then all of a sudden it got walked back. It only took like 24 hours, but it got walked back. But we're still sitting here with nothing, probably having to wait until after the holiday weekend to hear anything about what's happening. And it's like, we're really waiting until Tuesday for this. We're waiting until the cuts happen on Saturday and waiting literally 5 days away from a game to get anything. And people will be like, oh, sportsmanship and gamesmanship with Lions. Like, who gives two rats' asses about the Lions and what they need to know and just everything about that. But it's like everything about this has been so hodgepodge and just not normal. Like I don't know. I don't know. There's just something about all of it that
if Trubisky was going to win this competition, he should have won it early in camp. Foles was coming in with almost no offseason program, new team. He's used to the system, whatever. He's at least very familiar with it. We'll at least go that far. But he has no continuity with the rest of the roster, anything like that. If Trubisky was going to win the job, he should have come into camp this year and buried Foles on the first few days, looked really sharp, and given it no opportunity. I think the longer camp went on, and we almost saw this with the reports, as the first few days there was some positive stuff with Mitch, but he wasn't really gapping out Foles in the competition. Then all of a sudden, the last week or so, we've seen more reports on Foles looking sharper, Foles looking a little bit better. Granted, beat writers' opinions, but if they were valid if you were supporting Mitch and they were valid one way early on, then to be intellectually honest, they have to be valid the other way as it wears on. But I just feel like the longer it went on, the more it favored Foles with Mitch not gapping him out. And so now Foles is getting more continuity with the position players. He's getting more familiar with the system, and he's just looking like a more polished professional quarterback, which people can bash on Nick Foles all they want, but the guy's won a Super Bowl. He's played in big games. He's played in big moments. He's been a big time player before, granted in very small, very specific sample sizes. But to be honest, he's performed at higher levels than we've ever seen Mitch perform. And we have to acknowledge that so far the ceiling we've seen from Foles is higher than Trubisky, and it may have taken some time to get up to speed in Bears camp, but I think maybe you're starting to see Foles get a bit of an edge. I don't know. I'm with you. I think if the game kicked off in an hour, Foles would be the starting quarterback. I think that's where it sits right now.
Yeah, and like commenters are bringing up good things here, like how many teams like Nick Foles has been cut by, and we're looking at him like, oh, he's the saving grace of the Bears offense.
Yeah,
like, he has a Super Bowl
I'm not saying Foles was good. Don't mistake me saying Foles was going to start as me being an advocate for Foles being a really good NFL quarterback. Those are two very different things. Right. Because I just don't believe that's the case. I'm just saying Nick Foles I believe is better than Mitch Trubisky. That's not a high bar. That's not high praise. I just think he's going to be the starter, and that's just me being realistic. Those are two very different arguments.
Right.
And in fairness about Foles being cut and bouncing around the NFL, Mitch hasn't had that opportunity yet, and that's coming at the end of this year. So now we start seeing the Trubisky bounce at the end of the 2020 season, and if he even sticks in the league. Foles has at least been able to do that.
I mean, if Mike Glennon can stick around for a couple of years, I think Mitch Trubisky can stick around for at least a decade.
Blake Bortles still getting a paycheck somewhere. Now, granted, Blake Bortles has also had higher ceiling in the NFL than Trubisky, but we'll see.
I mean, it's gosh, I wish we would hear something tomorrow. I like that I just want this to be put to rest. I want to know if Kicker Mageddon is still a thing and see where the hell Cairo Santos is. I mean, for all I know, Cairo Santos is going to be the new Bears kicker. Yeah, that whole thing going off the rails, like just even that, like it's funny how low that has flown under the radar after just how significant it was a year ago.
Stephen, you don't have to worry about it if the offense can't get into field goal range. So just
fair point. Yeah. So many high hopes, and where did they all go?
Remember a year ago when we were previewing the season?
Oh God. Oh my God.
I think we were both in the 10-6, 11-5 category, and I think maybe one of us, I can't remember who, I think one of us maybe had them just missing the playoffs or sneaking in as a wild card. I think one of us didn't even have them winning the division last year. So we weren't Super Bowls, but it's a very different animal this year.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. I think that might have been my pessimism last year, if I'm not mistaken. I'm always pessimistic though. That's just who I am. Yeah, here you go. Here's the comment. Let's trade Foles for Rodgers. I'm sold. Yeah, Packers don't want him. Yeah, start Love.
Come on over
your team. Just do whatever the hell we need to do to just get the Packers out of everything. So again, obviously we're not going to spend a lot of time on this, but cuts are happening. Bears made a bunch of cuts today. Napoleon Harris. Maxwell. I'm thinking Vikings.
Not Napoleon Kaufman, the former Oakland Raiders running
back. Making cuts, obvious cuts. I think it's pretty apparent at this point in time, especially with the truncated preseason and training camp, not even preseason, who's going to be on the team. There might be a shock here or there, but nothing over the top, given how top heavy this roster is. So with that being said, God, I love the comments on this. This is great. With that being said, and kind of bypassing that, because honestly, it's beating a dead horse. We're going to look at the 16 games facing the Chicago Bears schedule in 2020. We're going to go one by one, kind of give our insight into who we believe may or may not come away with a victory week in, week out. We'll give our predictions on the final standings and just hope that I think there will be a lot of negativity here, but maybe I'm incorrect in that. Now you're shaking your head. Okay, there's going to be a lot of negativity here, and we just hope that we are dead wrong, and that's all there is to it. So with that being said, as if we didn't bash them enough at the beginning of this show, the Bears, a week from Sunday, kicking things off against the Detroit Lions up in the great state of Michigan. And again, that defense, not a lot to write home about. Matthew Stafford coming back after missing the back end of the year with fractured vertebrae, I believe is what it was, or compressed vertebrae, something along those lines. They have DeAndre Swift, a fun new offensive weapon, and not a whole lot has changed with Matt Patricia's team. The fact he's even back is kind of shocking in the grand scheme of things. However, I don't envision a scenario in which the Bears lose week one, and I'm praying that holds up. But there really isn't a lot here for me to say the Bears are at a disadvantage against the Detroit Lions.
Before I make my pick, I think, I will make my pick. I think the Bears will win week one. I think it's terrifying that whoever wins the quarterback competition plays zero part in how we think the Bears season is going to go. To go back to my point about whoever's the starter, it's not a ringing endorsement of him over the other guy. It's horrifying to me that I'm sitting here looking at the schedule and I can't find one game where I'm like, wow, man, if Mitch Trubisky is the starter here, I really like our chances over Nick Foles. But it's terrifying to me that the quarterback plays no part in any of these decisions. But I will pick the Bears to win week one at Detroit, even though if this game were later in the year, that's typically like a classic Bears stub your toe game in October or November.
Yeah, I mean, kind of like the Lions game last year. We'll just bring back memories of all shapes and sizes. Again, like we had talked about, the beginning of this schedule for the Bears is setting up pretty well. In my opinion, the first real difficult test doesn't really come until week 3, if not week 4. The Falcons have a hell of an offense that they've put together. Their defense, not too much, but the Colts, just with everything that they've done there and everything that they have drafted and signed, and just the way that Chris Ballard has navigated that salary cap is fantastic. You mentioned the stub your toe. I also see this as a potential game of the Bears defense just overloading the front seven, overloading the Lions, and allowing the Bears offense to get some short fields, get some easy scores on the board if the defense doesn't score themselves. And it creates a little bit more hype than what is needed for the Bears, and it turns into, we're running, we're great, we're back. Last year was a fluke, we're gonna kill it. Only to feel a massive letdown in the difficulty and the strength of schedule on the back end of 2020 that the Bears are going to face. I can't envision, again, anything about this being lost. I can see it being a 2-score victory rather handily, as long as whoever is matched up on the opposite side of Kyle Fuller can just defend somebody, whoever that ends up being, whether it's Jalen Johnson, who is apparently now ready to be thrown into the fire, or somebody else that, again, out of that random hodgepodge group of late round draft picks the Bears have compiled over the last couple of years.
I would agree with you there, and hope. The funny part is when you said 2-score game, I'm thinking like 13-3, 14-3. I don't have much confidence in this team, Steven. We'll see that. I actually just went through and did all my wins and losses on here, and it's not pretty.
Yeah, it's yeah, I don't know. It's we'll get to it here momentarily, so stay tuned. So all right, we both start the season off Bears 1-0. We move to the home opener in front of a packed Soldier Field with no fans as we welcome the New York Giants to town. Daniel Jones, who was a turnover machine in his rookie season. He actually has healthy weapons now, which obviously will be helping him as we inch ever closer to things. And again, Saquon Barkley, you have Darius Slayton, you have Evan Ingram, you have Golden Tate, who has been a thorn in every NFC North team's side with the exception of the Lions for a long-ass time. But again, the defense, not really there. They have Joe Judge as their new head coach, a questionable hire when that all came together. Again, it seems unless Daniel Jones takes some incredible leap from year 1 to year 2, the front seven has their work cut out for him between Hicks and Mack and Quinn to just ransack that offensive line and make Daniel Jones make the mistakes he was making a year ago, whether it's fumbling the football or just throwing god-awful passes into the secondary that were very, very easy interceptions. I feel like it's a 2-0 start for the Bears here, all things considered.
I do not.
Well, fine.
I don't. I feel like Jones is going to take a step this year. I think the Bears. Does anyone remember the game last year? Like, Jones was terrible. Barkley, I believe, was nicked up. He had a hamstring issue last year, didn't he? And the Bears barely squeaked by. I'm saying the Bears come out flat at home and lose to the Giants.
Wow.
Gut feeling is just this feels like a flat home opener.
I am very curious though. Are the Bears going to play better with no fans or with fans? Because there are certain points in Bears history where you remember them just being like, "Shut the hell up," like when the offense is on the field.
Not an issue this year.
And I mean, there's no argument to that being a thing this year. Again, the possibility of Daniel Jones making a leap is there. I mean, this is a top 10 guy. I know it was a questionable pick when they grabbed him out of Duke. But again, you want to see that leap. I just have a feeling, and this is kind of be along the lines of what we saw last year, early in the season when the Bears went into Denver against Vic Fangio, is something tells me they're not going to have their legs under them, under a new coach, under a new scheme, and the Bears are going to be able to take advantage of that, given they have that core in place that's knowing what they need to do and get after the quarterback and just wreak havoc. Saquon Barkley's going to run for 100 yards. I mean, I've
started that week in fantasy, folks.
I have let that be a thing, but I just cannot envision that being a loss. I mean, maybe I'm wrong. Who knows? Maybe the leaps and bounds will happen. The Giants will start 7-0, and the collective of the state of New York will lose their shit. So, who knows what will happen. So you're 1-1, I'm 2-0. We move to week 3, and the Atlanta Falcons in that fancy bird's nest stadium in Mercedes-Benz with their 2 football stadiums. The Atlanta Falcons, week 3, another noon kickoff. There's a lot of them this year because when you suck, you play a lot of Sunday afternoon games. Where are we landing there?
Loss. Do you really expect them to go down there? Yes. Oh my God, no.
Why?
Steven, I told you this season's not going to be pretty. I'm going to be saying
we're going to end up at like a 1-15.
I'm not going to turn this around.
Hashtag tank for Trevor.
Schedule. I think a lot of people are underselling the Falcons based on last year when they're kind of ignoring there's still a lot of talent on that football team. It has to show up and play. I get that. And the comment section is going crazy. I feel like the comment section is treating the Bears like they went 12-4 last year and went to the playoffs. We sucked last year. We have to realize that. Like we have to come to terms with here's the thing is we're talking. It's like, oh, we're going to beat the crap out of the Giants. I see that in the comments, which is hilarious. We were bad last year too. There's Giants fans looking at the Bears like the Bears were terrible last year too. We have a chance to win this game. We have to quit treating ourselves like we were any good last year. We weren't. Like the defense was good enough, but they weren't dynamic, and the offense was terrible.
Well,
so
yeah. we need
to stop acting like we can't lose to the Giants. We almost did it last season. We need to quit acting like we can just go down and beat Atlanta. Like there's not evidence for that.
With Atlanta,
Taylor, good point. I don't think we can go down to I don't think we can go outscore Atlanta. If that game turns into a shootout, do you have any confidence that we can keep pace with Matt Ryan and Julio Jones?
Matt Ryan, Julio Jones, Calvin Ridley, Todd Gurley, a new Atlanta Falcon
for 5 carries. Get him 5.
Dude, he's going to surprise a lot of people. I am on the Todd Gurley train when it comes to fantasy football. I feel just like this whole beginning of the season hinges on the offense actually just being competent. Like that's all we need him to do is be competent.
Our offensive line is still bad, and we still have a non-dynamic running back.
Stop it.
And we're bad at quarterback. And we have one proven wide receiver. And a rookie tight end and an old tight end that we're hoping can give us 4 to 5 games. Find me competent.
I mean, well, if you're going to put it that way, I mean, on the flip side, the negativity of a guy like Todd Gurley, I mean, he's got arthritic knees.
Again, me saying we're not going to beat the Falcons isn't a ringing endorsement of the Falcons.
I know. Yeah, I know. Honestly, like nothing about this game and the fact that Dirk Cutter and the way that he runs that offense in Atlanta doesn't scare me. I mean, Hayden Hurst is the new tight end there, who is a vital piece to that system. Honestly, he's a first-round bust at this point in time because he really hasn't shown much. He allowed a lower draft pick in Mark Andrews to step over him, and he's going to be a focal point of this. He's definitely going to be a focal point of this. And Julio Jones, Kyle Fuller, I would hope that he would mirror him throughout the day. I know Calvin Ridley's a guy that a lot of people are expecting to take that big leap in year 3. Again, though, just the way that things match up and the way that Matt Ryan is not necessarily a guy who likes to throw on the run and escape the pocket. And again, I am putting a lot of faith that the Bears offense can just be competent here. That's all I need is just them to be just Steven, 15th in the NFL. If the Bears defense or the Bears offense is 15th in the NFL, this is a 10 to 12 win team.
I feel like you're hoping for like a 2005 type season. And just this defense is kind of dragging an offense along with it.
I mean, if it has to come to that, that's kind of how they're built. I mean, that's the problem is that's how they're built. And the way that they were stopping teams, specifically before Akeem Hicks went down, and then you add another solid pass rusher in Robert Quinn, you get back every other piece with the exception of Eddie Goldman, who chose to sit out. There's just something about it where there shouldn't be a problem with how the defense, again, kind of carries like that 2005 team.
Hey,
like it's sitting there. And
if you want me to say we're going to have an elite defense, we're going to have an elite defense. We had an elite defense last year. If you're asking me if I trust this offense to do anything competently, no, because I have yet to see them do it. You have really, with the exception of Jimmy Graham and Cole Kmet, Ted Ginn Jr. a different? I mean, I don't get
Jermaine Ifedi.
Yeah, I don't get the confidence in the Bears offense. This goes for Mitch. This goes for everyone. If you've listened to this podcast before, I will believe it. At this point, I will believe in this offense when I see it. Because I've been told about it for a year and a half now, ever since they started going downhill halfway through the 2018 season. I will believe it when I see it now. I'm done giving them the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah. I don't know. Just the way that the two sides match up has me. I don't know. And maybe I'm wrong. I'm gonna say 3-0. I'm gonna say 3-0 to start the year. There's something about it. I gotta say it.
Okay.
So you're 1-2.
I'll happily be wrong. I'll happily be wrong.
We're gonna I think be in agreement on this next one if it makes you feel any better. So 3-0, 1-2, Colts, Bears, Soldier Field, first game of October, the fall. I have this one as a loss. There's nothing about this game that I feel confident about between that offensive line, that defense that they have continued to bolster. They added more weapons. I mean, they were kind of a middle of the road group last year. I think a lot of that had to do with the fact that at quarterback, I mean, Jacoby Brissett isn't going to turn a lot of heads. He's not going to be a guy that you game plan around. They get a steam train of a running back in Jonathan Taylor, who can turn into a hell of a player. When all is said and done, I mean, just everything about this has me looking at the Colts are going to come in and blow the doors off of the Bears in week 4, and all of the hype about how the Bears start the season is going to come to a screeching halt week 4.
I agree completely with you. This was a game. Even I almost picked the Giants as a loss just because I feel like they're going to come out flat at home. At the Falcons, I don't see them scoring with them. The Colts was one where this is the most confident pick I've made, where I don't see us staying. I love what the Colts did all offseason. And if I love what the Colts did all offseason, I have to pick them over a Bears team that I'm really not that high on coming into the year until they prove otherwise to me.
Yeah, it's again, I know Phillip Rivers is obviously on the 17th hole, if not the 18th. This could be it. I mean, he's on a 1-year deal. I mean, he could completely crap the bed, and that's the end of Phillip Rivers. But the way that this team was built for him, where he has as good of a protection as he has ever had in his career in the NFL. And, you know, looking at just the rest of that offense, and you draft a guy in Michael Pittman, you have T.Y. Hilton. If he can stay healthy, that's a huge get. And then Jack Doyle, who in my opinion is one of the most underrated pass-catching tight ends in the NFL, and he can have a hell of a season if he stays healthy. Forget Trey Burton and damn Indianapolis and all that crap. But I'm gonna say loss here. I say 3-1. Hilton is ancient, Sherry. I will say that. However, when he is healthy, dude can ball, and that's all there is to it.
And I think he'll be healthy week 4. I feel like he'll break down later in the year. I mean, maybe if you catch the Colts, week 12 after the bye or something, maybe you figure maybe Rivers is nicked up, Hilton's injured, they're leaning on Taylor. I don't know, but I think week 4 everyone's going to be pretty healthy.
Yeah, and again, we'll see what comes of it, honestly. But again, it's early. Who knows? I mean, for all we know, half the league's gonna have COVID, and we're gonna be playing with XFL players.
Yes.
When it's all
PJ
said and done. All right, moving on. Game 5. I believe a Thursday night game. Yes, a Thursday night game. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who have turned things around with their offense. They have Tom Brady. They signed Leonard Fournette. They still have Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. The defense, again, not a whole lot to write home about, but here we are with again, another matchup where it's a formidable offense and a defense that kind of makes you go, meh. So what we got?
Loss. Tampa.
Dude, you are killing me right now.
Oh, yeah, dude.
This is one in 4?
Oh, I'm full tank for Trevor mode this year.
I mean, yeah. Don't get me wrong. I would love to have him on a Bears roster, but the Bears aren't that bad. Come on.
Are really? They that
good? There's something about Thursday night games for the Bears that seem to get at least their defense riled up a little bit more. I'm not convinced, despite the additions that they've made, that Bruce Arians is going to be able to resurrect Tom Brady to some former glory and what he has.
Weirdly, he has a bit of a history with it, with doing stuff like this with Palmer. I don't know. I feel like there's enough talent on it. What this is going to come down to is a lot of these picks are going to be, do I trust the Bears offense to put up enough points against elite offenses that are going to be held down by the Bears defense? And that's what a lot of these picks come down to. And I don't trust the Bears offense. So you're going to get a lot of losses.
And again, the Tampa defense isn't great. They're just not.
No.
I can't envision things here. The comments are turning against you, Nick.
Oh, I don't care.
I know. I'm gonna say a win here. There's something again about Thursday night games, and if it's literally just being average against a subpar defense, that's the keys to this. And getting after, again, a guy in Tom Brady, yeah, you can point to the fact that Bruce Arians resurrected Kurt Warner's, or was it? Yeah, was it Kurt Warner? Yeah, or Carson Palmer. Excuse me. Carson Palmer.
Yeah, no, because Haley.
That was Ken Wisenhunt.
Wisenhunt. I'm sorry, not.
Resurrected Carson Palmer's career after the whole retiring out of the Raiders and coming to the Cardinals and doing that. The amount of signs that Tom Brady showed in a scheme that was built for him in New England a year ago, it's not going to make that big of a difference, even if he does have better weapons. As we've quickly learned, he doesn't necessarily gravitate to better talent all the time. He will at some points, but there's something about this that just has me looking at this like a Joe Montana in a Chiefs uniform type season.
We went to an AFC championship game.
Did he really? Okay, yeah, that was a terrible analogy then.
He lost to the Bills in the AFC championship game.
That was a terrible analogy then. I'm sorry. Just the thing you want to forget about because glory years behind. Whatever that analogy is, that was before my time. I'm just going to shut the hell up. But I'm going to go win here. There's just something. I'm gonna.
You have him on the road to the Super Bowl. You have him at 4-1.
I do, and you have them at 1-4.
Yeah, we're
We'll
like the
see.
odd couple, Steven.
Can we buck the trend here? If you say something on this next game, I might leave this very warm room. I need to turn on a fan in here. It's really hot. Bears
Win.
Panthers.
I have us beating the Panthers.
Thank God.
Okay.
Something we agree on. I mean, Teddy Bridgewater, he's better than Kyle Allen, who had the majority of the snaps. Matt Rule is a decent college coach. I don't think his game's necessarily
That was
going
a
to
weird hire to
translate.
me. I don't know. I did not expect that. I was blown away by that hire.
Yeah, it's there's nothing there. I mean, Christian McCaffrey is Christian McCaffrey. I mean, if you get Roquan to just kind of spy him down the whole game, that doesn't seem like there's much else there to be concerned about. DJ Moore is a hell of a young wide receiver. Don't get me wrong. I think he's in for a very, very big year. I mean, dude put up 1,200 yards at 23 years old. I mean, he can ball. He balled out with Kyle Allen. But again, there's no defense in Carolina. There just is nothing there.
It's a franchise and an organization completely kind of tearing it down to the studs. I honestly, I think this is an easy win. Not quite that bad. It won't be 2-14.
You heard it here first. We're talking 3-13, folks.
Oh yeah.
So all right, so 2-4. I am at 5-1, and this is where the fun begins. Ultimately, for this schedule, this has been a doozy of a game the last 2 years as the Bears take on. Yeah,
why do we keep having them?
Blame where we land in the standings every year. The Bears taking on the Rams. And again, they had to go through a lot of changes just to get their salary cap straightened out, and it's still not straightened out.
No,
all things considered here. It's on the road. They had a chance at this last year. That's the thing that blows my mind. But it, again, is a weaker defense. They lose Dante Fowler off the edge. They still have Aaron Donald to work with in the middle. They lose Todd Gurley. They gain Cam Akers in the draft. They hope Darrell Henderson can turn into something in his second year. Jared Goff is still kind of like, they get rid of their best wide receiver.
Bounce back.
Right. I mean, they get rid of their best wide receiver in Brandon Cooks. Again, the way that things line up, looking at the paper, it's going to be a defensive dogfight. I do believe that.
This is a complete coin toss to me. And if this is one of those games where if it were a normal regular season and you were going on the road, like with an actual crowd and environment and stuff, and that's a weird trip out west anyway, I would pick the Rams. But in this one, there's no crowd and you're just kind of going out there. This was a coin flip game, and I actually scribbled it out twice when I picked the game. I have the Bears winning this game, but it's maybe the least confident game.
Coin flip.
Yeah, it's a complete coin flip to me because here's the thing, Steven. This year is so weird. I have to keep taking the crowd out of it. Like I said, if this game was on the road with a crowd, I'd feel way different about it. But it's a weird game to me. I have the Bears winning it, but I don't know how much it means.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think it's going to be like again, like it's been the last couple of years, like a 16-13 or even lower than that, like a 13-10, where there's some fluke scores and it comes down to a defensive stand as everything, finishes up in that game. Again, the way that the teams were built, it comes down to these were two teams that were neck and neck with each other. They were just beating each other up back and forth. And the fact that they honestly, all of these games are going to basically be on a neutral field. That's all it comes down to.
The only thing you ping a team for is travel or a short week sometimes. And you trying to factor that in is almost impossible.
Right, exactly. And again, for as close as the game was last year, in LA and all the things that were going on at that point in the season for the Bears, I would hope that they've gotten all those kinks worked out, that the defense is going to be better and they're going to be able to stop a weaker offense better than they did a year ago. I've got this one as a win as well. I mean, Jared Goff does not scare me at all.
No.
Like there's nothing about him that does, and God bless the Rams for giving him that contract, for getting him to a Super Bowl and literally crapping the bed in one of the most boring Super Bowls I have ever watched. There's just nothing there that has me thinking, wow, this is a team that I'm really concerned about, that I'm really worried about. So that being said, moving on. So we are at, what am I at? 6-1 here, 6-1 and 3-4. You're climbing towards 500.
I'm on a 2-game hot streak.
Screeching halt, I have a
Yeah,
feeling.
oh yeah, absolutely. Brick wall.
This was a devil's game a year ago. This is where it just like everything just fell apart, with the Saints coming to Chicago to take on the Bears. The Saints are going to the Super Bowl.
I have to say something in the comments. Chubbs just said the new O-line coach isn't a soft-spoken guy like Harry Heastand. If you know anything about Harry Heastand, he is the furthest thing from soft-spoken. That is the funniest thing I've ever seen said about Harry Heastand. Ask any one of his former offensive linemen at Notre Dame if he's soft-spoken, and you'll get laughed out of the room. As somebody who's sat on the sideline for Notre Dame games and heard him talk to his offensive line, that's hilarious.
Also, a disclaimer here: you also do write for Notre Dame.
Yeah, like I know
you are a diehard fan.
I don't know where you got Harry Heastand soft spoken at, but my God, no.
Back to the point I was going to make. The Saints are my Super Bowl pick for the NFC. I'm just going to leave it at that. They are a very good team. They are a very well built team. Just the fact that there were being rumors thrown out about them trading Alvin Kamara, that's laughable. You don't do that with one of your best offensive weapons in a Super Bowl window. Just everything about this team, both offensively and defensively, like this is the team to beat. If the Bears were to miraculously pull out a win against the Saints, then all hell is going to break loose with the hype about the Bears in 2020. And I mean, it's been such a bizarro year. Anything is possible, and it wouldn't shock me if it happens. But
I think you were on the Saints bandwagon a little bit last year too. I feel like you had them maybe going to the Super Bowl or in the NFC Championship game last year too. So I mean, I'm a believer in the Saints. I keep waiting for them a little bit like you year after year. I keep waiting for them to make that jump back to that Super Bowl level.
Well,
and
to be fair, they got screwed 2 years ago, but
that is true too. I mean, that's fair.
I mean, again, this is, I think, one of the easy things to chalk up as a loss on the schedule for the Bears by all means here. Sherry, I'm with you. We're at 6-2. We're just gonna ride this together here. Chubbs, the Saints have a very underrated defense. They're not being talked about as much as they should. And that's the thing I think is going to catch a lot of people off guard, is people think Breeze, Thomas, Kamara, they add Emmanuel Sanders. Yeah, got to talk about the other side of the ball, because it's going to be a force to be reckoned with how that team has come together over these last couple of years. Next game, again, this is kind of the gauntlet run for the Bears here in this 5-6 week stretch. They head to Nashville, taking on the Tennessee Titans, a very run-heavy team led by Ryan Tannehill and Derrick Henry. I will say this about this Titans team. They turned a lot of heads in the playoffs, but the way that their stats lie, they are headed for significant regression on the offensive side of the ball, and they are not, in my opinion, as formidable as the rest of the consensus, or the majority consensus is. out there on them that if you stop Derrick Henry, chances are you can stop the Titans. And that's kind of where I sit with that. And I don't see, I mean, he's a very good running back. Don't get me wrong. He's put on a hell of a performance down the stretch. And the way that his schedule is set up for the end of the season this year is set up for another one of those big performances from him. But the Bears defense should be able to stop him, and they should be able to stop the Titans. Yeah, their defense is good. It's not great, but I see this as another win.
I have this as a loss, but I don't think it's as obvious as people would think it is, just based on how good the Titans were last year. I think this is a game that plays into the Bears' hands a little bit with the way the Titans play. This is going to be, kind of a slobber knocker of a game, and I think that plays into the Bears' hands a little bit. I think this is one of those deals, though, where I think the Titans are just a more talented football team at the end of the day. And I agree with you. There's going to be some regression. I feel like the Titans, Henry goes down, and this is an entirely different conversation. I don't feel like they're a good enough team to overcome, if Derrick Henry's not running the ball for them. But if we're saying all things being equal, I think the Titans are good enough to beat the Bears. Especially at home. I don't know how much stake we put into traveling.
Tennessee might have like a 50% capacity.
That 3-hour flight might really take it out of them. I don't know.
This might be the first game with fans that the Bears experience.
Exactly. So I mean, you did have this as a win though, or how would you?
I had this as a win. I am not sold on Tennessee in 2020. They're I feel like they are the fluke team out of this. They're going to regret paying Derrick Henry. They're going to regret paying Ryan Tannehill. All of their stats signal regression. They have talent. Don't get me wrong. I know that
they are your 2002 Chicago Bears.
Well, we have cars in here. We have a Matt Karstensen appearance. The 1 year bumps always come back. It's that yo-yo effect with everything. It's I don't know. There's nothing.
A weird team. They're a team that after they lost last year in the playoffs, I didn't feel like, they're going to be around for 4 or 5 years. You know what I mean?
Right.
There was nothing that gave me that gut feeling that this team is on its way up, or this team is going to be a contender for the next 5 years or not. That's not saying that it can't be a good football team, but I think they were better last year than they actually are. But while they're going to regress, I don't think they're going to regress as hard as some people may think. I think there is something. I think there is something to be said about the way they play that lends itself to a bit of consistency, so they don't fall off as hard. But I don't think they're as good as they showed last year. Because I think a lot of people put stock in that Patriots win, and I think as you talked a little bit about Tom Brady, is how good was that Patriots team really, and how much stock do you put in that win? I think there's a lot built up into the Titans in that win.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's kind of a weird way, like a weird team to start the second half against too. Mm-hmm. Like there's just something about it. And the Bears have a late bye this year, week 11 bye for Chicago. So, I mean, I can also kind of see a letdown in this one, just because you're getting tired. You're starting to run into that wall, waiting for that time off, that week off. Yeah, I don't know. There's so we got. I want to make sure that I'm counting this correctly here. So you are at 3-6.
Correct.
Okay. I'm at 7-2.
We're really right. One of them would be really wrong.
Yeah, we're a teeter-totter here. Yeah. Moving on to week 10, the week before the Bears bye. It's their first visit with the Minnesota Vikings. All the divisional games are late this year. I don't like it. Vikings coming into town to take on the Bears. The Vikings have never fared well at Soldier Field, regardless of what the situation is. They did improve their defense this last week. I'm not even going to try pronouncing his name. Picking Nigue. I can't. From Jacksonville. Picking him up for a second. Yeah. So they get him to put on the opposite side of that pass rush. No Stephon Diggs, which that doesn't really benefit anything, despite that that offense really not passing too much because you have Dalvin Cook, you have Adam Thielen, you pick up Justin Jefferson in the draft. I think the Vikings series is a split, a home and home split, specifically, and the Bears pull out the win to head into the bye on a high note, and really a high note overall before they enter this. And again, looking at 8-2 heading into a bye.
I actually have this as a win, but it's because I always split the Minnesota series every year. I just split it. I always give the Bears the win at home, and I figure we're going to wet the bed on the road against Minnesota. So that's how I always pick this series, and I'm going to stay consistent with that since the beginning of time when I picked Bears games.
It's like three guarantees in life: death, taxes, and the Bears and Vikings.
The Bears-Vikings split.
So yeah, I know the last couple of years have been a little odd. But I don't know. There's something again, the way that the Vikings operate from year to year, it's like they're just a bizarre team. Like they just are. And the fact that, a lot of their offense is built around a guy in Dalvin Cook who is injury prone in several different ways. He's dating back to even his days in college, where whether it's the shoulder, it's the knee. He kind of is a walking insurance policy with the way that he goes about. And
this late in the year, that creeps up. I think
right.
If this game's earlier in the year, you're not as concerned about it. But now you have to start factoring some of that, mileage on the tires in.
Yeah. And a couple reminders here as well. 4-0 against the Vikings the last 2 years, and we're
go back to my 35 years, and it's a split. The last 2 years, I'll take the last 2 years as the outlier on that one.
Yeah. So after the bye, it's Sunday Night Football as the Bears head up to Lambeau Field, their first visit with the Packers.
Jimmy Graham revenge game.
Oh man, I don't know what to make of the Packers this year. I really don't. They did nothing to benefit Aaron Rodgers. They trade up to draft his eventual replacement. The wide receiver that they add in free agency to help the team then opts out for this season because he didn't want to risk COVID. And instead, they draft A.J. Dillon, who apparently they are just clamoring on about after Aaron Jones scores 16 touchdowns in 2019. Like, there's nothing that made sense about what the Packers did in the offseason.
Nope.
Or anything that made them better. And I feel like they are of the teams in the NFC North, the one most built for regression. Like, it just, God, I don't know. Like, I have this set as another Bears win. I'm going to end up with like a 14-2 season at this point.
Yeah,
at the rate that I'm
you
going.
Have you guys is like the 85 Bears right now.
Oh God, it's just there's nothing about this team that screams another 12-4 season. Like nothing, or 11-5, or whatever it is. Like, it's just there's nothing about it that makes me think this is a formidable team that's going to vie for an NFC crown, a conference crown, let alone run away with the division, kind of like what they did last year.
Fair, but I don't think they have to be that in order to beat Chicago.
Yeah.
But now I guess in your context of you have the Bears at 8-2 or 9-2, whatever at this point, that would make sense. But my context is I don't think the Bears are that good. So I don't think I have to argue that the Packers aren't an NFC Championship contending team in order to have.
They're just better than the Bears.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
So I have this as a loss, and you have this as a win.
Yes.
But we'll look at the season very differently.
I will potentially flip flop with you here later on, foreshadowing anything.
Okay.
Moving on, we have the Lions heading to Soldier Field. Again, kind of like what we're looking at for next week. There's again not much here to be worried about, especially at home. This feels like a divisional sweep year for the Bears going up against the Lions and going 2-0 against them in 2020.
I agree, but you and I both know if this game was in Detroit this late in the schedule, we'd both pick it to be a loss for no other reason than that this would be the stub your toe game late in the year. Since it's at home, it's a win for me. But we both know, and be honest, Steven, if this was at Detroit this time of year in a normal season, you'd pick this as a loss, and you know it. Or you'd be very concerned with no real reason about this game.
I mean, 2 years ago they went in there on Thanksgiving and beat them. And that was with Chase Daniel.
But it wasn't pretty either.
I mean, there's. I know it wasn't pretty, but like.
Oh no! This is a win for me, but I'm just saying this is one of those games where if it was at Detroit this time of year, you'd be like, this is weird. I don't know. We should win. We'll probably win, but I feel weird picking it as a win.
Yeah, just the way that the teams match up. The secondary is not going to be fixed for the Lions unless they make another dumb in-season trade to plug somebody in for 8 games and then there he drifts off into the distance. I don't even know who the hell would do that at this point. I mean, I think that's it. It should be, and in my opinion, will be a win for the Bears as well as you thinking that as well. We move on to what is possibly the most incompetent front office in the NFL.
Are we playing ourselves?
The
scrimmage. I didn't have that on the schedule.
Houston Texans.
Oh, okay, then.
I'm still trying to figure out how Bill O'Brien has as much pull as he does in that front office. It's a mess down there. They get rid of their top wide receiver. They replace him with a concussion-prone wide receiver in Brandon Cooks, even though he is a very good wide receiver. They then trade for David Johnson, who looked like a lethargic 80-year-old man on the field last year in the limited time that he was given before Kenyon Drake took the ball and ran in Phoenix. Again, I mean, Deshaun Watson is a hell of a quarterback, and we could see like another late, like, F you, like you should have drafted me type performance.
Yep, that's what we're going to see.
That's what you think we're going to see. You know, again, I just don't see like that. The defense there is aging considerably. I'm going to assume JJ Watt's going to be injured like week 6, like he normally is, because he can't stay healthy to save his life. Again, like it just feels like there's not much there. Like this just feels like a cakewalk of a schedule for the Bears, and all they need to do is just be average on offense. And I'm banking everything on that. I'm banking everything. They only have to be like 20th. Like they probably could be 20th and still get away with like 9-7. But if they're like in that 12 to 15 range, again, they're like 11-win team. Maybe more, because apparently I'm heading towards that. The more I'm dialing up these victories. Now. I am.
Already.
That's beside the point. So you have this as a loss.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm a Deshaun Watson believer, and
truther.
I'm a Deshaun Watson truther, I guess. I don't know. I just feel like even with the maybe the first or second worst front office in the league, I still think this Texans team is just more talented than the Bears, especially at the most important position in all the sports. So I have this one as a loss.
Okay,
Eric, that's a logical fallacy. The Bears offense cannot only get better, it can actually technically get worse. Will it? I don't know. I'm not saying it will. I'm not saying it will actually get worse, but it could actually get worse. You can't just assume it will get better because we assumed it would get better last year. And
so
did it?
Telling me there's a chance.
we all sat here last year and said the Bears offense can only get better. We got really excited about a lot of new shiny toys, and we all remember last year.
Bears Vikings, December 20th, Christmas week. I hate it when the Bears. I mean, the Bears have played well in Minnesota. Don't get me wrong. And as it was, provided to us, thank you, viewers. The Bears are 4-0 against the Vikings the last 2 years. This has, in my opinion, it's kind of set up as a trip game, just because they're going to look towards that week 16 game against the Jaguars, the inept Jaguars, who are just trying to trade off anything that's currently on their 53-man roster, or cut them, I guess. Because there you go, Leonard Fournette. Wish you were a Bear. I feel like this is the trip-up game. I haven't really talked about a trip-up game to this point. I feel like this is it, given the final two in the schedule and the fact that if this does go the way that I am like projecting it to right now, they could afford a trip-up game at this point.
This is my trip-up game as well, in a bit of a season that is full of trip-ups, I guess, in a way. But I just have the Bears losing this game. Coal in the stocking for Christmas. It's at Minnesota. I don't care what it says the last 2 years. Bears split with Minnie. It's a horrible PTSD from my childhood, and I'm sticking with it.
Fair. I don't think we have to spend much time on this one because I feel like it's pretty straightforward. Bears going down to Jacksonville to take on the Jaguars. Win.
Another loss, Minshew Mania. No, I have the Bears winning.
Oh my God! If you went that direction, I'm gonna take you out of this stream.
I love Minshew, but we're not gonna lose to the Jaguars.
There is nothing about that team. There's nothing about that team that makes me concerned about anything that they could potentially, even at home, potentially give the Bears trouble for. So, it's Bear truth. I shouldn't assume. I know I shouldn't, but one look at the Jacksonville roster and it's pretty damn evident that outside of DJ Chark, there's not a hell of a lot there.
No.
There's your tank for Trevor team is the Jacksonville Jaguars, and Godspeed. Would not shock me if he pulls an Eli and says, I'm not going to Jacksonville come the 2021 draft, because there's a very high possibility in my mind. And don't put it out of play. We will wrap things up with the Bears and Packers Soldier Field as we say goodbye to the god-awful year that's 2020 and have our first Bears game in the calendar year of 2021 on January 3rd to wrap up the year. I have a feeling I know what you're going to say, so I'll just let you say it. Yeah, exactly. So, okay, so that's 2 losses to the Packers, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. So that puts you at 5, 6, 7,
6 and
8,
10.
9, 10. Yeah. Ugh. I feel as though at that point, they're going to kind of flip-flop here. I'm going to say it's going to be a loss as well.
Are you only saying that because you don't want to have the Bears at 13-3? Like,
no. I feel as though, like, at that point in the season, unless, again, this is complete hypothetical, and to be gratefully honest, I am making this crap up as I go. This was not a thought out plan. But if they finish 12-4, again, the loss to the Saints, I feel like the Saints are going to go 14-2, if not better. They're that good of a team.
Okay.
And if they have nothing to play for, they're going to bench people, and that's just going to be what the Bears do at that point in the season, because I don't think there's really another team out there that's going to be able to, go neck and neck. You could probably say maybe the 49ers, maybe the Cowboys. I don't know. Like, that Cowboys offense is I mean, the whole roster, if they can figure out potential, that's going to be a dangerous team to deal with. The Niners, they're going to butt heads with the teams out in the West, and they're going to cannibalize each other there. So I'm not necessarily worried about that per se, but I think it's more or less going to come down to there's not going to be much to fight for at that point in the season, and it's going to be an option for the Bears to rest some guys to get healthy for a playoff run. They're going to go back to the playoffs. The more I look at these rosters and the more I look at everything, I mean, the strength of schedule is just a shining goose egg for the Bears to take advantage of. And it's if they can't do it, it's just tear it all down. Just tear the whole damn thing down at this point.
And that's, and there's two things I want to address. Is one, I know he had people in the comments earlier talking about the Bears just need to average like 18 to 20 points a game and be an average offense. 18 to 20 points a game is actually a well below average offense in the NFL right now. We need to recalibrate our thinking. A team that scored 340 points last year, or including defensive scores and special team scores, I get all that, averaged 21.25 points per game. That was good for 20th in the NFL. So if you're talking about a team wanting a team to average 18 to 19 points a game, that's not an average NFL offense. So we need to get above that threshold to become an average NFL offense, which is okay. Secondly, if you have the Bears at 12-4, that's fine. And I can see that going through on some of this team's rosters and the way the schedule shakes out. And it's going to be a weird season no matter what, because you can't really factor travel maybe a little
anything
bit.
In.
Yeah, the crowd, whatever. We have no idea what COVID's going to do, because who knows who's going to be out, opt out, get sick, whatever. But what I will say is, if the schedule's that weak, I think we also need to look at, I almost brought it up with Mitch earlier, we also need to approach a 12-4 season under these conditions with a critical eye. And we can't let this season be a false positive. If the Bears go 12-4 against a really soft schedule and do well, and I hope the Bears go 12-4. I hope I'm wrong. I hope my prediction is wrong, and I'll put that on the record.
And we can all just give you crap.
Fine, I'll wear it. I've made wrong predictions.
I know.
But the thing is, even if the Bears go 12-4 and they beat up on weak teams, where does it lead in the playoffs? How does the team look? And then you need to start looking at a critical eye of, is it an impressive 12-4? Is it a 12-4 because of the schedule? And ultimately, the question is, how does Mitch look during all this? Because quarterback's the most important team. Yeah, because quarterback's the most important position in all of sports. So how do our quarterbacks look? And approach it from that perspective as well.
Right.
We can't just be happy with 12-4, 13-3, and crap the bed in the playoffs, and then think everything is going to be fine when we're like, well, we did it against a really weak schedule, and then we cycle back through the way we did 2018 to 2019. Like, we can't do this hop back and forth all the time.
Right. Which I get. Again, I kind of to echo one of the comments here. You hope that there are some keys that are kind of unlocked to this offense, bringing in some guys, drafting some guys to a key component of this offense, with tight ends in Jimmy Graham, if he has one last ride in him, if Cole Kmet really is the guy that can get the job done in stretching the field, seeing how often the Bears run some two tight end sets and really open that offense up, because I mean, that position is so vital to what Matt Nagy calls. And if they're able to get the job done, and whoever the hell's throwing them the ball can be accurate in throwing them the ball. Helping Allen Robinson.
Smith has got it, yeah. Smith got you.
Helping Allen Robinson, hopefully seeing Anthony Miller build off of how he finished last year, seeing Javon Wims, seeing Riley Ridley take steps forward. Whatever the hell they're doing with Cordero Patterson, I guess he's a running back now, so we'll leave that to the side. And Ted Ginn, Darnell Mooney, whoever it is, that it all just gets figured out. And for all we know, that was the key, and they just needed to get somebody competent in there, because Adam Shaheen wasn't it. Trey Burton wasn't it. Jesper Horsted wasn't it. JP Holtz wasn't it. I can go on. Are there still 12 tight ends on the roster? I don't even know anymore.
Who knows?
There won't be on Saturday. But I'm keeping my fingers crossed. I'm keeping my fingers crossed that something finally clicks.
No,
something.
And that's the thing. I guess that's like we're assuming, or people that are more bullish on the Bears, I guess, are assuming something's going to click and it's all going to come together. I'm prove it to me mode. And someone mentioned in the comments, I don't know who it was, that the Bears were 4th in scoring in 2018. They were 9th in the league in scoring in 2018.
That's still pretty good.
But keep
my
in mind,
Bears standards.
Yeah, but keep in mind, Steven, remember how the back end of that season ended? That was really. Yeah, exactly. That was that ninth in scoring.
The Rams game.
Yeah, pretty. And then it starts tapering off towards the end of the year.
Yeah.
So when this Bears offense proves it to me after a year and a half of watching garbage, I'll buy in. But I got to start seeing it week in and week out. Right.
No, I'm there with you as well, and I'm putting my Bears fandom probably in front of my head in analyzing this and just hoping that they do have it figured out. But I think it's going to be pretty evident pretty quickly whether or not they do have it figured out and get things rolling. So, we'll see what happens. And again, another good point brought up here as well. And Green Bay kind of has a softer schedule as well. So kind of to your point of they just have to be better than the Bears. That like that's
and the funny part is that when people look at Green Bay's schedule, part of the reason Green Bay's schedule is soft is because we're on it, because of the way we were last year. Is anyone looking at the Bears on the schedule this year and they're like, oh man?
I mean, I as a Bears fan, you like to think that just because of the defense and the improvements made there and the fact that they're healthy for now. But as we all know, especially in 2020, that health is not a given. So
no.
We'll see what ends up happening. We're on two opposite ends of the spectrum. And next week we get to talk about an actual football game taking place.
And we'll have fun prop bets all season long.
Yes, we will. We are. I will lose a lot of money probably on actual prop bets. The idiot in me, FanDuel gave out $50 in free betting money on their sports book.
I kept getting emails from them. I'm like, I'm not doing this.
And so I doing like a 17 parlay. I'm like, free $50 if I hit this, I get like $7,000. I missed it on like the second game because I piss poorly bet on the St. Louis Cardinals, who couldn't get it done against the Cincinnati Reds. That's what I get for betting on the Cardinals. All the damn teams out there. Who knows? I'm just happy the football's back. We'll talk that. We'll talk our prop bets. We'll make them outlandish. Interesting. Yeah, that's another way to put it. And from there, we will, just take it in stride and see what the season does bring. Right.
I'm excited that I can predict a 6-10 season. I'm really excited I could predict a 6-10 season. At one point the comments would have hated me because I legitimately had us at 4-12 at one point when I ran through this exercise earlier today, but I made a few changes and got us to 6-10.
Boo.
So just good enough to miss out on really good quarterbacks.
Just a bit. So all right, well, that's going to do it here for this episode of the Bear Front Podcast. We appreciate everybody joining us live.
Yeah, thanks. This was fun.
And as well. So be sure to check out the podcast. It'll be everywhere tomorrow morning, wherever you listen to podcasts. It is a new day on Shy City. We have all sorts of fun things going on. We have More Bears coverage added this season with Dr. Phil, draft Dr. Phil, not the actual Dr.
Yeah,
Phil.
not
That'd be
Dr.
weird.
Phil.
He's just bizarre. Draft Dr. Phil, Shane, the smartest man, keeping it 100. Wednesday nights. Cars is on there too. He's in the comments section tonight. And then Claudio, the barber, the moderator, 7:30 on Wednesdays. They hit the live button. We'll be around on Thursdays, keeping you company towards the end of the Thursday night football games for the most part, and maybe even some recaps on Sunday nights, whether we're celebrating a Bears victory or being angry about whatever the hell the Bears did to screw up a winnable game. Because we all know that that's a very Bears thing. So, we're here for it through thick and thin. Just pray we're not drinking through a 2-14 schedule by the time it's all said and done. Right?
If we get to that point, Steven, I'm out.
Peace.
Yep,
we're done. So for Nick Bitting, I'm Steven Johnson. Thank you for tuning in. Again, we will be back next week. Bears coverage across the board on Shy City. So make sure you are subscribed to our channels and here for it. Subscribe to all the podcasts. We have a Bulls podcast too now, by the way. So everything happening with Shy City and everything we have going on. So ShyCitySports.com. Check out the forums as well. And we will talk to you next week. See you, everybody.
Be safe.